At 8,000 meters below the ocean, the pressure is so intense it could crush a car flat on your thumb, yet deep-sea animals thrive here, unfazed. How can loose bones and bodies made of jelly endure forces that destroy submarines and rupture ordinary flesh? What makes these squishy survivors triumph where everything else breaks? The answer begins with the physics of the crushing deep. Pressure in the ocean does not just rise slowly, it builds with every meter descended. For every 10 meters down, another full atmosphere of force stacks on top of what is already there. At 100 meters, that is 10 times the pressure at the surface. At 1,000 meters, it is 100 times more. By the time you reach 8,000 meters, the depth where Hadal snailfish and other deep-sea creatures live, pressure has soared to around 800 atmospheres. That is like having the weight of 800 times the air above us, or the force of several cars pressing on a single hand. The physics is simple. More water above means more weight, and the equation is as straightforward as multiplying water's density by gravity and depth. The Hadal zone, which begins at 6,000 meters, is a world where every square inch is squeezed by hundreds of kilograms. Down here, the rules of survival are dictated by this relentless, invisible crush. A shallow water fish pulled up from the depths too quickly becomes a living demonstration of what pressure can do. The swim bladder, once compressed by the weight of water, suddenly expands as the outside force vanishes. Gas trapped inside balloons out, pushing the stomach through the mouth, swelling the eyes, and even turning the intestines inside out. This brutal transformation is called barotrauma. It is not just the visible damage. Organs rupture, blood vessels burst, and tissues tear as Boyle's law turns pressure change into mechanical chaos. Even humans would fare no better. Lungs would collapse, sinuses would crush, and every air pocket in the body would be squeezed to a fraction of its normal size. Pressure does not only squeeze from the outside, it finds every weak spot, every bubble, and forces it to break. In the Hadal zone, anything with rigid walls or trapped gas is doomed. The deep ocean does not show mercy to bodies built for the surface. Some of the ocean's most successful survivors have bodies that seem almost unfinished, soft, translucent, and nearly formless. Jellyfish, for example, are built almost entirely out of water, with just a thin net of protein giving them shape. Their bodies are so close in density to seawater that they barely notice the weight pressing in from every side. Water itself is nearly incompressible, so these animals experience almost no change in volume even as pressure climbs past 100 atmospheres. Rigid bones and shells which crack under stress are replaced by flexible tissues that distribute force evenly throughout the body. The blobfish is a classic example of this strategy. Living between 600 and 1,200 meters off the coasts of Australia and New Zealand, it spends its life at 60 to 120 times the pressure found at the surface. Its flesh is a loose, gelatinous mass, more like a pudding than a muscle. With no swim bladder or gas pockets, the blobfish stays neutrally buoyant, drifting just above the seafloor. When brought to the surface, its body collapses into a sagging, almost cartoonish form. But at depth, this structure is perfectly tuned for survival. The reduced skeleton and watery flesh let the blobfish shrug off pressure that would crush most animals. In the deep, softness is strength. Hadal snailfish push vertebrate life to its absolute edge. In the Izu Ogasawara Trench, a snailfish was filmed gliding at 8,336 meters, over 8 kilometers below the surface. The deepest specimen ever recovered comes from 8,022 meters in the Japan Trench, where pressure exceeds 800 times what we experience on land. These fish are not armored for battle. Their skulls are thin, flexible, and full of gaps, missing key mineralization genes found in their shallow water relatives. Instead of a solid helmet, the snailfish skull is more like a frame, allowing water to fill every space and equalize pressure inside and out. Bones bend instead of breaking, and the vertebrae are so lightly built that even gentle handling at the surface can cause them to fall apart. Without a gas-filled swim bladder, snailfish depend on their watery, gelatinous tissues for buoyancy. Their muscles are soft and sparse, their skin loose and nearly scaleless. Biologist Mackenzie Geringer describes them as the squishiest vertebrates on Earth, a body plan that looks fragile, but at 800 atmospheres, it is perfectly tuned. Brought to the surface, these champions of the deep seem to melt, revealing just how specialized their loose bones and jelly flesh truly are. Inside every cell of a Hadal snailfish, the fight against pressure happens at the molecular level. As depth increases, proteins, the tiny machines that keep life running, begin to lose their shape. High pressure tries to twist and flatten them, breaking the delicate folds that make them work. To counter this, deep-sea animals rely on a special molecule, trimethylamine N-oxide, called TMAO. TMAO acts like a brace, wedging itself around proteins and holding them in the right shape, even as pressure builds past 800 atmospheres. Measurements show a clear trend. The deeper the fish, the more TMAO fills their tissues. In shallow fish, TMAO levels might reach 40 millimoles per kilogram of muscle. At 4,800 meters, that number climbs to over 250 millimoles per kilogram. In snailfish living beyond 7,000 meters, TMAO can reach nearly 400 millimoles per kilogram, 8 times higher than surface species. This chemical buildup is not just about proteins. Cell membranes, which need to stay flexible for signaling and transport, are also tuned for the deep. Hadal fish pack their membranes with unsaturated fats, keeping them fluid and responsive where pressure would otherwise stiffen them. As biochemist Paul Yancey says, TMAO is like a molecular life jacket for proteins under pressure. Without this invisible armor, even the softest, most flexible bodies would fall apart long before reaching the trench floor. Gas has no place in the deep sea. At 8,000 meters, any bubble would be crushed to a fraction of its size, making traditional buoyancy tricks useless. Instead, deep-sea animals turn to physics and chemistry for solutions that do not pop under pressure. Hadal snailfish, for example, float not with air, but by tuning their bodies to match the density of seawater. Their flesh is packed with water and soft proteins, creating tissues that are nearly as dense as the ocean around them, usually about 1.03 grams per cubic centimeter. No gas-filled swim bladder, no sudden expansion or collapse. Some species go further, filling their livers with squalene or other oils. Squalene is a light hydrocarbon, 15% less dense than water, and it remains stable under crushing force. In rat-tails and lanternfish, these oil-rich livers can make up half the body mass, providing lift without risk. Other animals, like deep-sea squid, combine wax esters and ammonium ions to fine-tune their buoyancy, drifting in the water column with almost no effort. Slow-motion remotely operated vehicle footage often captures these creatures gliding with broad, gentle strokes. Wide pectoral fins, undulating bodies, and gelatinous forms give them control in a world where energy is precious. With no bubbles to burst and tissues that barely compress, these animals float and move as if pressure does not exist at all. Titanium spheres 5 inches thick carried the first humans to Challenger Deep in 1960. Every extra millimeter of metal meant more weight, more fuel, and less room for anything else. The Trieste's pressure hull alone weighed over 13 metric tons, all to keep a tiny bubble of normal air safe from 1,100 atmospheres. Engineers had to build to resist, and that meant bulk and weight. Today, deep-diving robots and submersibles still rely on the same brute force principle. Resist the ocean's crush with walls of steel or titanium, each design a careful balance between strength and practicality. The deeper you want to go, the heavier and more costly every centimeter becomes. Nature takes a different approach. Instead of fighting the pressure, deep-sea animals let it in. Their bodies, almost the same density as seawater, do not resist the squeeze. They conform to it. No stress points, no rigid hulls, just a gentle diffusion of force through jelly-like tissue. Engineers are starting to pay attention. Flexible housings filled with oil or soft polymers can shield electronics by matching external pressure, much like a snailfish's watery flesh. Some research teams are experimenting with pressure-tolerant gels inspired by deep-sea chemistry, hoping to build sensors that survive miles down without heavy armor. These ideas point toward a more flexible future for deep technology. Materials engineer Dr. Lin Tran says, "We have spent decades building thicker shells to keep pressure out. Now we are asking, what if we could build technology that flows with the deep, not against it? The next generation of ocean explorers may owe as much to loose bones and jellyflesh as to steel and titanium." Every year, new species push deeper, revealing that life's limits are not set by strength, but by adaptation. As engineers turn to nature for solutions, the secrets of these soft-bodied survivors could shape future technology and could redefine where life can exist on this planet and beyond. Thanks for diving deep with us.